Okay, so if you missed last week, you're going to need to run through this tutorial so you can catch up with everyone else. Load up Adobe Animate. Make sure that you've got your files from the previous classes, and we're just going to go from File, Open, and you'll be probably on version 2, which when you open it, this is what you're going to see. You're going to have our scene of our tennis court that we created. You should have about 5 layers, and in each layer you should have a ground, a background, some tennis lines, a bit more of a shade at the back, and then the image of the net. So once we've got all of these, what we're firstly going to do is we're just going to hold shift and click so that all our layers are highlighted. We can also just shift and click each one, and we're going to right mouse click and we're going to say merge layers, and it's going to merge it all into one layer because we don't need to play around with it. We're going to double click merged layer 1 here, and we're going to rename this background. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come over to 3 seconds on our scrubby on our timeline here. We're going to just select into this one here, and we're going to right mouse click and insert a keyframe, which means that as we're moving through and we start animating, this background is going to stay put. It's not going to disappear. So making sure that our blue scrubber here stays at frame 1, we're going to lock this layer. And so now if you're clicking around the screen, you shouldn't be able to move anything. If something is moving, it means you haven't merged it properly. So you'll need to go back and make sure that you've merged everything into your background. Once we've done that, what we're going to do is we're going to hit this little box here 3 times. We're going to create 3 new layers. And our first layer, this we're going to call our trophy. Layer 7 we're going to call temp, and then layer 8 we're going to call our ball layer. So if we go to our trophy layer, what we're going to do is we're going to import our trophy. Now you could have, this might have been something that you've previously imported, and if so you will find it in your library. I don't have it in my library here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go File, Import to Library, and I'm going to find my trophy right here. I might also, while I'm here, do my ball as well. Don't know why that happened. There we are. Yeah, hitting Control, you can select 2 different ones, and then I'm going to hit Open. So now both my trophy and my ball are in my library. So now, because I'm on my trophy layer, I want my trophy. I'm going to click my trophy, drag it, and I'm going to place it somewhere around this corner on my screen. For now, we're going to leave the trophy alone. And so what we're going to do is we're going to lock that layer so that we don't accidentally make some movements. We're going to come up to our ball layer, and I'm going to select my ball from my library, and I'm going to click and drag that onto my screen. So what we're actually going to do with this ball is we're going to have it come from the left hand side, and it's going to go bounce, bounce. It's going to bounce against the trophy, then come back here, and then just bounce up and down a little bit until it kind of comes to a rest. But like, how are we going to do this? If we just tried to animate this as it is, you may not have a proper guide. It may come down in straight angles, but what we're actually trying to do when we are bouncing our ball, we're actually trying to replicate something like this. So this is where I talk about squash and stretch. So as our ball is in the air, in its highest point right here, this is where it's also at its slowest point. It's not very high, it's not very fast in the air, but it's also in its natural form. But then as it starts coming down, this is where gravity starts to take place. And so what we have to do is we kind of have to simulate that. And because our ball is a bit squishy, it's not like a bowling ball, it will distort and stretch and squash. So as it starts to come down, as you can see with number 4 here, it starts to change a little bit. It stretches a little bit, it comes in a little bit, but only ever so tiny. Then when we come to number 5, where it's nearly hitting here on the ground, we're stretching it a lot more and we're making it skinnier. And then when it finally hits the ground, it's squishing, it's a bit fatter before it starts to come back out. And then as it comes back out again on number 7, it's also still going to be quite fast. It's still got a bit of speed from coming down with gravity. So it's going to come up, it's going to shoot up really fast. So again, we're stretching it, but we've also got a little bit of overlap here so that it still looks like it's made contact with the ground. And then as it comes back up, it's obviously going to slow down a little bit and it's going to come up here now, and then it'll get a little bit of air time before again we come straight back down. So we're only going to really be focusing on the first 10 frames here. After this, it's not really applicable. It's pretty much repeat the same thing. But this is just going to give you an idea. And so this isn't just what we're doing is working in, we're doing a bit of slow in, slow out kind of scenario. We're looking at arcs. As you can see, there's an arc because the world works in arcs. And then also we're using squash and stretch, and we're playing with some forces. So these are some good principles of animation that we're learning today. So what we're going to do is in order to guide our ball so that we get nice arcs that look really natural, what we're going to do first of all is we're just going to place our ball off to the side here. And let's lock our ball layer so that we don't accidentally select it. We're going to come into our temporary layer. And so this layer eventually is going to be deleted, but what we're going to use it as is our guides for our arcs. So if we come over to our rectangle tool and hold that down, what we're looking for is our oval tool. Now, before we click anywhere, we're going to come over to our properties. We're going to select our fill as our no fill and our stroke color. Let's choose a color that's easily contrasting so that we can see it really easily. I might do like, let's think, I just might do red. And then I'm going to increase my stroke size so that it's not super tiny. I'm going to increase it to 18. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold shift and I'm going to draw a circle. And then I'm going to select my freeform tool up here on the left hand side. And I'm going to double click this circle that we have just made. And I'm going to say Control D to duplicate. Then I'm going to make sure that I hover over and I'm placing my mouse on the line of the stroke to move it. And we're just going to move it off to the side so that it looks a little bit overlapped, but it also lines up in line with the one previously. And then I'm going to duplicate that one more time and I'm going to move it over again and make it look like it lines up like that. So what you should end up with is 3 circles here in your temporary line. That kind of just looks like some rings. Now, obviously this is too big because what's going to happen with our ball is our ball's going to come in and it's going to come here and we know it's going to hit our trophy before it comes back. So we're just going to make some adjustments. So we're going to select, double click our ring that we've got here. And because we're using our freeform tool, we can now make some changes. So first of all, I kind of want it so I'm starting on this side here where my ball would be at its highest point. And we want to make sure that when the ball bounces and hits the trophy, it's kind of either at its highest point or it's on its way down from the highest point. And so you may need to resize by holding shift as well to resize your circles to kind of get what you want. Something like this. Once you've got this, you should have about 2.5 circle or half kind of circles, 3/4 of a circle on each one. And this is now what we're going to use as our guide. So we are going to lock this and then we're going to unlock our ball layer. Make sure that we select our ball layer so that we're animating our ball. And we're going to start, and what we're going to do work in first is we're going to work as pose to pose. Now, if you can remember back in week 1 when we talked about pose to pose, what happens is we're going to, it's almost like setting up a map. So we'd set a keyframe here, one here, one here, one here, one here, probably one here, probably one here, and then so forth. And then we would come back through later on with our doing our in-betweens, which would then be frame by frame animation. So let's first of all, we are going to start with pose to pose. So we know that our first one is going to be off screen, and to keep the animation fluid, what we want to do is we want to keep that first frame off screen. And so we're going to position it so that this center of the ball kind of follows along this line. And we already know that a keyframe is in place. Now, a good thing to check here is this, if this one here is highlighted. If it's unhighlighted like I've just done, it means it's not going to automatically set a keyframe for you. So all you have to do is just select that, click that and say auto keyframe, make sure it's turned on so it's got like a little light box around it, and that's going to help you on your way through. And so looking back at this image, we can see, well, number 2 is at its highest point and number 6 is at its lowest point. So let's go into our second frame here. All we have to do is move our buffer. Now we're going to select our ball, and obviously it's going to be in its highest frame at this point here. Now, another good thing to remember is we probably need to start putting on some onion skinning. So how are we going to see where our previous frames were? So the best thing to do is this button here, is when we select it and turn it on, it's going to show us some onion skinning, as you can see here, from the previous one. So that's going to really help, especially when we start doing frame by frame. So now we're going to go to frame 6. Just move your buffer over to frame 6. You can also just like click this and type in the number that you want to go to. And we're going to select our ball, and obviously in frame 6 we're going to be at the bottom here. Now I'm not going to be squashing it or anything just yet. We're just doing our first initial setup. And when we're coming here, we've got frame 10 is at its highest spot again. So let's go over to frame 10. And we're going to move our ball to its highest spot here at frame 10. I would probably say not frame 13. I would probably say it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're only working with the first 10. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So in frame 14, we're going to move our ball, and it's going to be here as well. Then we're going to look here. We've got up, down, 1, 2, 3 going up, 1, 2, 3 going down, 1, 2, 3. Now we're going up again, which would be frame 18 right here. And I would say frame 19. No, let's do frame 20. We're going to place it right here. Actually, no, sorry. You're right. That is frame 19 we're going to place here. Now we're going to make sure that we've got a little bit of a crossover here with frame 19. And we're going to make sure we've placed it so that it's still on there, but only on this corner, because what's going to happen is, again, this is going to hit the trophy. What's actually going to happen with the trophy is once it's hit, it's going to wobble from side to side before it comes back to its normal position as it gets hit. Right, so we've got frame 19 like this. So obviously frame 20, what's it going to do? Well, frame 20 is probably going to be coming right back here. Then we're going to go down to here. So let's add another 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Let's say frame 24 is going to be back down here. And then 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to go up. And then we're going to come back down. Say end frame 32. Then 1, 2, and then we're going to now shorten this, which means we shorten the amount of times of our frames. So we're going to then just come up a little bit because the ball is now going to bounce ever so slightly. We're going to go 1, 2 in the middle. So on frame 38, we're going to then come down to the bottom. Then in frame 40, we're going to come up a little bit. And then in frame 42, we're going to be down a bit. And then if we want, we can go a little more. But what we're going to do is we're just going to leave that for now. So if we press play, this is what we're going to have. Pretty choppy stuff. But what we've actually now created is our roadmap. So we can come back to frame 1. And because we've got our onion skinning on, now we can go frame by frame and fill in all these little in-between bits. So we've got number 1, now frame 2. Frame 3 is going to be still a little bit of airtime that we're getting, but it's going to be slightly lower. Remember, we've got some overlap here, slightly lower, making sure that we're still following this arch. Then in frame 4, what's going to happen in frame 4? Well, it's starting to distort a little bit. So how are we going to do that? So making sure that we're still in this tool, we're going to stretch it only ever so slightly. We're going to bring it in only ever so slightly. But we're also going to rotate this because the ball would naturally be rotating and it would be following this axis. So it would go from this to this, and then obviously we're going to move it down a little bit. We're going to have a bit of a crossover again as well. And we're going to move it around, making sure that we're placing the center of the ball still along this arch. Then in number 5, what's going to happen? Well, we're going to stretch it more. It's going to make it really stretchy. We're going to make it a little bit skinnier, not too ridiculous. And then we're going to place it down here. We're going to rotate it a little bit more, and we're going to make sure that it follows this arch. By the time that we get to our 6th one, what we want to do is we want to squish it. But as you can see, when I'm squishing it like this, it's moving off the ground where we want it to position. So what we actually need to do, see this white dot here? This is actually what we called our anchor point. So we need to move this anchor point just by clicking on it and move it down to the bottom here. And so now if we do this, we can now move the top and the bottom comes. So what we're going to do is we're going to squish this a little bit like that. We're also going to make it a bit fatter as well. And so that's actually your first bounce done. So now what we need to do is we need to come out of the bounce. And this is where we can cheat a little. And this is what I love sometimes when working with an image. When you're drawing, it's a little harder by hand, but we're working with a little image of a ball right now. And so what we're going to do is we're going to grab this frame here from frame 5. We're going to right mouse click it. As long as we click inside the frame, we're going to right mouse click. We're going to copy frame and we're going to go into frame 7. We're going to right mouse click and we're going to say paste frame. And so it's pasted the same frame, but what we're actually wanting is we're wanting this stretch of the ball so that it's cohesive. And so now what we can do is we can move it. We can probably move it down a little so there's a bit more of an overlap. We can overlap. We can rotate it so that it's following this arc over here, kind of like this. And so now we know we can move on into the next one. So then we come into frame 8. And so what are we going to do? We're going to copy frame 4. So we're going to go, frame 4 looks good. We're going to copy it, right mouse click, copy frames. We're going to frame 8. We're going to right mouse click. We're going to paste that frame. We are going to rotate it and move it as again, just so there's a tiny bit of overlap, but making sure that the center of this ball is also following this arch as well. Now, instead of coming all the way back to frame 3 and copying frame 3, we know that frame 10 is already in a perfect form. So all we have to do is we have to just copy frame 10, paste it into frame 9, and move it. Frame 10 we can leave alone because we know we've already set that one up. And now all we're doing from frame 11 all the way to frame 18 is we're just copying what we've done in this first half on the way down. So we've got frame 11. So frame 11, obviously, it's down a little bit. It's overlapped a little bit. It's still in its normal form because it's getting a bit of air time up here. It's slowing down in the air. But we know frame 11, okay, it's starting to come down. So what are we going to do? We're going to come over to frame 4. It's already in the right angle. All we have to do is move it over here, but what we're going to do, we're not just going to move it right from here, we've got to copy the frame. So we've got to go copy, come into frame 12 and say paste, then we move it. Exactly the same scenario here for frame 13 as well. We're going to copy frame 5, we're going to paste it into frame 13, and we're going to move it. When it comes to frame 15, well, we're going to squish this again. Now we can either choose to do it ourselves like this again, moving things like that, or again, let's cheat. We're going to come over to frame 6, copy, go to frame 14 and paste it, then move it over here. And again, we're going to come over to frame 7. We're going to make sure we're clicking the frame as well. We're going to copy that one. Frame 15, we're going to paste. And we're going to move. Now, I'm assuming that you'll probably pause this at some point. You'll work ahead at your own pace. That's absolutely fine. Just pause and come back to it when you need to. And keep going up until we get to our trophy. You can keep listening along because I'll still work along as well. And what we're going to do next. What are we going to do? We're going to come up to frame 8. We're going to click the frame. We're going to copy. We're going to paste the frame into frame 16. And then we're going to move it. We don't need to angle this one much at all because it's already been angled for us in the previous one. We're then going to come to frame 18. We're going to copy frame 18, put that into frame 17, move frame 17 down a little, still following this lovely arc. Now, so what you've got is what you should do now is press play and have a look. We've got a nice little bounce just in this first half. It feels a lot more fluid. It feels natural. We've got a good amount of squash and stretch. Probably a little bit more squish than I would normally like, but it's still okay. We'll leave that. Now, what was going to happen though is when it hits the trophy, what do you think happens? Well, of course, it's going to squish. But again, what we need to do is if we try and squish it, it's going to squish central. So what we want to do is we want to move our anchor to about here, and then we're going to squish it. We're going to also make it a little fatter as well. We cannot forget that. Now, in this case, you may want to angle it a little bit if you want, and then move it so it kind of still fits this angle. And let's see how that looks. I don't know if I like that. Yeah, that's pretty good. So we've got a bit of squish, but I kind of feel like we need a frame in between here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select this frame. I'm going to hold it down and I'm just going to drag it to the next one. And then what we're going to do is we're going to select this one in between. What I'm going to do is I'm going to... No, I think I've done the wrong one. We're going to move this frame. Sorry, frame 19, click and drag that into frame 20. So in frame 19, what I think I want to do is I want to add another one just here, but maybe like stretch it just a little, like this, and then rotate it ever so slightly. Just to give it a little bit more of a fluid crossover and that little initial stretch before it it squishes. And maybe let's reduce the size of that squish just that little bit more, because it's not really a super hard hit. There you go. And so now it's got that squish and then it's going to come here. So what we actually want to change on this one is we're going to change this, and what we're going to do is we're going to stretch this one out. So what we can do is we can just go like this one here. We can go like this. How are we going to do this? Let's do it this way. We're going to stretch it out like this. We're going to bring it in a little bit. Let's rotate it a little and make sure that it still has that crossover on the squash a little. We're then going to come, where is our next frame? Right down the bottom. Okay, so we're going to take this next one here and we are going to change things up a little bit. We're going to give it some, not much airtime at all. We are going to just rotate this again. Let's stretch that a little bit more. No, let's not stretch that a little bit more. Come on, Z. Let's... Yeah, no, let's clear that keyframe. Let's come in to frame... Let's do frame 19 and copy frame 19. And let's paste that into frame 22. Let's move it somewhere around here. Let's circle this, just because what we want to do is we want to still give it a bit of air time, so that we need to just play around with the size of this ball a little bit before it starts falling straight back down. So what we're doing is we're going, okay, so it's hit the trophy, it's squished, it's bouncing off it at force, so it's going to stretch a little. And because it's going to get a bit of air time, what are we going to do? We're going to make it so that it starts to come back to its original form, but not completely. Before, what we're going to do next is we are going to bring it down here and we're going to stretch it again, because it's going to come down. Oh, whoopsie. It's going to now start stretching down towards the ball again, the end of the ball, because we're going to give it a bit of speed. Then, boom, it's hitting here. Now, obviously, we want to make sure as it's hitting here, it's going to squish and squish again, but we can just easily come down to frame 14, copy frame 14, and let's come back to frame 25. Click on frame 25, and let's just paste that there. Now, as I'm looking at this, I can see that I might want to make some changes just here. Let's continue forward first, and then what we'll do is we'll play with it after. If we feel like we need to make some extra changes, we can. Let's just play that now. Yeah, I kind of feel like we need it already. So what I want to do is I just want to move frame 25 again. Let's move it over one more time. And we're going to come into this frame here. What we're going to actually do is we are going to move this so that there's an overlap. We're going to rotate it a little, just like that there. We're going to come back into frame 23 and I just want to reduce that again as well. Obviously, let's make it a little fatter again. Let's make it so there's a bit of a crossover there, just so that it slows down in its airtime before it shoots back down. Because this is what we're looking at as we're doing this. We're not just thinking, oh, well, I want it to make it look like it's an arch and it's squash and stretching. But what we're thinking about is we're also thinking about gravity as gravity plays into this, how we want to make it so that it resembles natural, something that we see naturally occur in everyday life. Otherwise, when we watch it, we actually won't believe it and it won't make sense to us or the viewer. So let's have a proper look at that. Bounce, bounce, much better. So we're going to come into here and obviously we know that's when it's going to move up to the top. We're probably going to want to, because we've played around with some frames here, we're going to just click this one and move that over one more. And so we're going to come in. Let's start at the top. And no, let's not start at the top. Let's come in here. Frame 24, super easy. Copy frame 24, put it into frame, paste it into frame 26. All you have to do is rotate that and then so it's shooting up and down and give it a little bit of an overlap just so it's like there. Come into frame 30 and let's copy frame 30. Paste that in to frame 27. So we're going to move the ball about here. It's going to be a little bit wider, a little bit skinny, and a little bit stretched, not too much. Then we're going to come into frame 30 again. We're going to copy that into frame 28. Sorry, paste. We're going to come to frame 29, sorry. Paste 29 into 28. We're going to just move that down ever so slightly because what it's doing now is it's gathering airtime. 29 is up in the air. 30 is slightly down again. 31, let's come in here and what we're going to do is we're going to copy frame 27. We're going to paste it in to frame 31. We know 32, we need to move you one more because what we need to do is we need to grab frame 26 and we need to copy you and we need to paste you into frame 32. And obviously frame 33 is not going to be like this because we've got to squish it. So you can either manually squish it yourself or come to frame 25 and copy that and paste that into frame 33. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to reduce the amount of squishiness that has. See, just the width of that, maybe make it a little bit higher. Because what's actually happening now is the ball is going to slow down as it bounces on the spot. Now, our next frame, we have it's coming up a little bit. We want maybe 2 frames in between this one here. So, because we want to make sure that we've got some air time. So this one is a bit easier. So we're going to copy frame 36 and put that into frame 35. So what we're going to do is we're going to move frame 35 slightly down, just so you can see there's a little overlap. This is its airtime, remember? And then we're going to come in and copy this again into frame and paste that into frame 34. we're going to stretch it a little, make it skinnier. We're going to move it down, kind of like that. So it's going to go down, squish, coming up, a little bit up, getting a bit of air time. Again, we're going to move all these over. Getting a bit of air time. So the next one, okay, frame 37 is going to be down a little bit more, kind of like this. So it's hovering in the air, just that, oops, ever so slightly. It's okay if you move your ankle point. Try not to, when you want to move it, select this circle because it's just going to move the ankle point. It can be really irritating after a while. So just kind of select off the side of it. Then we're going to come, let's go to frame 39, sorry. So we know 39, we're going to do this one ourselves. We're going to move our ankle point down. We're going to give it a little bit of a flatten, just a little bit of a stretch. So we know that now when we're in frame 38, what are we going to do with 38? Well, we're going to move it down somewhere in the middle between this where it started from, where it's going to squish. We're going to stretch it a little. So we're going to make it thinner. We're going to stretch it. And what we're doing now is we're slowing the ball down as it bounces. So obviously we're going to move you over. I reckon let's move these over like that. Let's move you over. So we've got a squish. I'd say probably here. Yep, one frame in between now as it does a little tiny bounce. So I would say copy that frame, paste that frame. Let's just move it kind of like this. Give it a little bit of inwards, a little bit, ever so slightly, kind of in the middle. There it is in the top. What we're going to do is we're going to give it a little bit more air time, like this here. Then it's going to come down, and we're going to move it down kind of like this. Maybe bring it in just a fraction, just a fraction, just a little. It's not going to have a lot of force at play right now, so it's not going to need as much distortion. And then obviously in this bottom one here, what we're going to do is we're going to stretch it a little. We're going to squish it a little. And then, whoa, where is it? And then we're going to come to frame 41, copy that and paste that into your final one. And just make sure you line it up with the bottom of that so that it looks like it has come to a rest. Can use your arrow keys if need be as well to get it into the right spot. So you should have something like this. So hit play and let's have a look. There you go. We should have a nice, lovely little bounce going on. That looks great. This is probably a good point for you to save. You can go File, Save As. Remember, we're doing increments, so you would be now at increment 3. And hit Save. Make sure that you save it as version 3. And because we've now got our bounce done, we do not need these circles anymore. So what we can do is we can come into our temp layer, we can unlock it, and right here is a little trash can, and we can trash it. Now, because what we want to do is we don't want to do anything more with this ball, we're going to lock it, and we're going to unlock our trophy. So if we're scrolling across, nothing happens with our trophy until it hits frame 20. But that is not where we're going to start animating it. What we're going to do is we're going to think about secondary action. So the wobble of this trophy being hit by the ball is now classed as secondary action. And that's one of our principles of animation. So we're going to come probably start in frame 21. And so we're going to make our trophy wobble from side to side, but if we tried to rotate it from here, it's going to rotate from the center, and we don't want that. Things don't naturally rotate from the center. They rotate from like a somewhere on the bottom or something like that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to grab this trophy, and we know that first of all it's going to wobble this way. So what I want to do is to make it so that it seems like it's still on the ground, I'm going to move this anchor point to this corner. And so if I were to wobble it, it's going to do that, which is exactly what I want. So let's rotate this as if it's been hit to something like that. So you should have nothing in between there until boom, it's gotten hit. And then we're going to work frame by frame, I think, in this next stance. Mostly because we're only doing a small wobble. It's not a lot that we're actually going to do. So being frame by frame is actually okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go, okay, so this next frame, obviously it's going to have maybe a bit of follow through. So we're going to move it out a little bit more. Then we're going to move it back in a little. Again, thinking about kind of like airtime, but this is more like follow through and overlapping. Things like naturally will move out more before they come back in. And then again, okay, we're wobbling it. It's going to move a little bit more. Next frame, it's going to straighten back up. Then in this next frame, we want it to come this way. We want it to wobble to the left. So what we're actually going to have to do is we're going to have to move this anchor now and move it to the left. And so what we have to do is now rotate it a little bit like that. And a bit more, obviously. It's going to have a bit of force to this one because it's been upset by it. Then a little bit of overlap before it comes back in. Tiny bit of overlaps. Then it's a bit more force here as it's coming in. Now it's coming flat. And then what we're going to do now is obviously our wobble isn't going to be as strong now. It's going to be a smaller wobble. So we again need to go back to the other side. We need to move our anchor point over to here. And we're just going to move it a little. Maybe give a little bit of overflow. Bit of follow through, overlapping, coming back in a little. And then we're going to flatten it. Oh, that's maybe a bit more. There we go. And for our next frame, obviously, what are we going to do? We're going to move our anchor point again. And we're going to rotate it off to the side again. Not too big, just a smaller movement than before. Little bit of overlapping before it comes back to a flat stop. Now, if you want, you could do a little tiny bit more. Let's have a look and see what this looks like. That looks kind of cute, but we could probably go, I reckon, one more this way onto the right, and that's it. So let's move this anchor to the right, and let's just go a little bit, ever so tiny. And then obviously a little bit more for overflow. A little bit back. A little bit back to straight. And that's it. Let's have a look. That looks great. So what you've done now is in this little animation that you've created today, you have done squash and stretch. Let's put it on a loop. You have done, let's lift that, all of that. Okay, so you have done squash and stretch. You have looked at the principles of, so in our principles of animation, you have done arcs. You have done squash and stretch. You have done timing of motion. So slow in, slow out. You've done overlapping. You've done a bit of staging as well and creating appeal. So you've actually quite learned quite a lot today. So once you've done this, feel proud of yourself for achieving it. Um, Feel free to watch this video over and over and over again if you'd like. And make sure that you're saving it now in this next stage. So this would be, you would then go File, Save As. This would be our version 4. And what you're going to do is save it for now. And if there's extra time after you finish this, come and talk to me um, because you will then need to move on to the next stage. Otherwise, next week we'll all jump into the same stuff.